Welcome to a new setting of our
I know it's our
podcast.
third.
I think we're gonna be switching around all
Until
three
we
of them.
figure it out.
Yeah, till we
Yeah.
figure out which one works best for us. But
Eventually, we're just gonna buy a studio.
yeah,
Yeah, inshallah. One day.
that's the goal.
It feels so far now, though.
I know it was nicer when you were closer because then I could just do one of these.
Yeah, I know.
Stop. Okay, this is how we're gonna do the entire podcast. We're just gonna hold our hands like
Oh
this.
God,
All
my
right.
arm's gonna go numb.
All right. So you ready to talk about something very fun?
Yes.
You know. So I think today's topic we should talk about parent shaming
Okay.
and how people feel entitled to share their opinions, not opinions, but their constructive criticism
Okay.
online,
Yep.
especially anonymously.
Okay.
I got a lot to say.
So this is specifically for online.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I mean, yeah, go for it.
We can just talk about parent shaming in general, and then we can talk about certain things that happen online that people don't realize.
Yeah, no, go for it. I'll follow your lead.
Okay. So I think what's really interesting is that people don't give other parents or just first-time parents, just parents in general, grace, right? They have something to say about everything and anything, whether it's what you're feeding your kid, what they're drinking, how you're they're sick and you're taking care of them. Someone has something to say at all given point, right? It will be as simple as why are you feeding your child chicken nuggets?
Yes.
Why are you giving them Gatorade?
Yeah.
But things like that, right? I think people immediately jump to conclusion that this person doesn't know what they're doing and they don't know what's best for their child. So they are the savior and they are going to be the ones that are going to tell you what to do, right? And 90% of the cases, parents want the best for their child, and they've done their due diligence. They've spoken to their pediatricians and they figured it out, right? They figured out the recipe of how to make it work with their kids. And they're also just trying to survive, to be honest. So what is your take on the things people say online about anything and everything since you've become a parent?
I mean, I feel like you just covered it, right? Good episode. No, I mean, yeah, I feel like the internet's always been this place where everybody feels like they everybody is entitled to their opinion, right? But everybody feels like they're entitled to not just voice their opinion, but they are entitled to not for somebody to not respond to their opinion, right? And I think for us as content creators, we face that a lot because people are like, oh, well, you're a public figure, you're a public forum. Why are you upset? And I'm like, look, you can say what you want to me, but I can also say back whatever I want. Other people can also come on here and say whatever they want, right? Which is a separate tangent, but specifically for parents, I think it's a weird thing where every parent thinks that every other parent is doing it wrong, and that they're the experts, and we've fallen victim to it on our own, right?
100%.
Of looking at somebody and be like, oh, they're feeding their child that, and then it's take a step back. It's look. We have to remind ourselves. It's but we're just smart enough to not put it on a public forum, right? We're not documenting our
but also we're not
judginess.
Verbally outbursting what we are thinking just out in public.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we'll come home and we're we'll share what we felt and then we'll immediately check each other or check ourselves. We're no, that's wrong. We shouldn't be saying that.
Yeah.
But I think that just comes from being self-aware. I think some people genuinely don't think that they're saying anything wrong. This is actually how they feel.
Yeah, I mean, and
then I think there's also that fine line between constructive criticism and just flat out being an a-hole.
Yes.
Right?
There's a lot of those.
Yeah, so people will be like, you're a terrible mother, you're poisoning your child, you suck, and I'm going to unfollow you. Well, great, thank you for unfollowing me because gosh, you were exhausting when you were following me. Because I had to read those messages of you being bitter the entire time. And then two, it's there's a lot of people that will feel indifferent of whatever I post, right? And then they'll privately message me or even comment me, right? comment on the thing and they'll be like, have you considered looking at this? And to that, I'm like very much receptive,
but that's
right?
different, right?
That's different because
that's not criticism per se. It's providing an opinion. It's providing an alternative. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't really understand is that like just telling me I'm doing it wrong, right, is not the same as like, oh, you gave the example of like Gatorade, right? Oh, you're giving your child Gatorade. Have you considered just doing Pedialyte? Gatorade's really high in sugar.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's helpful because like you can, and of course some people will still take it some type of way, depending on what mood you're in. Anybody might take it some type of way, right? To be like, oh, like why are you criticizing me? But like that's still helpful, right? Because somebody's coming in, they're trying to be helpful, giving an alternative, they're giving some basis for what their comment, but they're not just outright trying to make themselves feel better. And that's actually something I think that's a big part of parents' criticisms of other parents is that I think a lot of it is they're trying to make yourself feel better for your parenting versus somebody else.
And I do have to say something about that. I'm going to add on, piggyback on what you're saying. I think what ended up happening for this person is probably they saw that, people were sharing their opinions and, whatever for that particular Gatorade situation, right? Like you gave your child Gatorade, it's bad. I saw a real, there was a handful of people who were like, this is what I've learned, and I think that you could try a different alternative. But my thing is, before, like a little bit more context, right? Like our pediatrician was okay with us doing that post surgery. Well, not our pediatrician, but
not just okay with it. Our doctor recommended it.
Yeah. And then the surgeons after the surgery, like her adenoids, and then like her ear tube, like they gave her a cup of Gatorade.
Yeah.
And then they told her, like, take a little sip of this, and then we're going to give you a frozen popsicle, which was made out of Gatorade. So not to say, like, we were just, like, drowning our child in, like, sports drink or, like, electrolytes, right? But this person probably saw what other people were saying. They, too, have done this themselves in some capacity. And now they're, like, really insecure and projecting it onto another parent.
Yeah, possible.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm saying this based off their previous messages, like the 30 messages of them being unhappy with how I am.
Yeah.
Right? So it does come back from, I think, them being, critical of themselves and then projecting that onto everybody else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of the internet in general is people trying to feel better about themselves by putting other people down. And I think parents tend to do that because, unfortunately, I think parents and obviously mothers more specifically, but they are held to this really pretty unreachable standard in a way, right? So like all you're doing constantly is you're so used to being judged that you go out and you start to judge other people.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like this weird vicious cycle. Whereas like, as opposed to like just trying to be there for each other, being the tribe, the village for each other, a lot of it is just super judgy cattiness. For particularly for mothers. I mean, dads, I think, have a different issue. I think judginess is not so much it. I think a lot of it is that we're sort of the brunt of the joke for a lot of things, right? Because it's like, the trend is like, the dad who doesn't know anything about his kid, who doesn't do anything. Yeah. And, we could spend like 4 hours talking about that in itself.
And if they do something, then that's a problem also.
Yeah.
That you're being a bitch.
Yeah. Which has been, something I've gotten comments on before as well. It's like, oh, like, your wife doesn't do anything. You're just a her, like, whatever. And it's like, again, like, the way dads in general, I think, have a whole nother thing that I could spend a day talking about.
Also, like, I know this is kind of going away from what we're talking about, but I think when fathers or dads do things, I think people think that it's just taking away from mother doing their own thing. Like, you don't have, like, you being present has nothing to do with me. You're being present for our child, and I too can be present. People can be present individually and collectively. Mm-hmm. So I think this whole idea of like, oh, you're too present, your wife doesn't do anything, so therefore you are a bitch.
Well, I think that's
I'm
so much.
I'm spelling this.
I know
because kids are like, somebody's watching with their babies, or I don't want to be that person.
But I think it's this constant like battle between genders in a way, right?
Yeah.
It's always, oh, if this, then that, right?
Yep.
If he's doing this, she's obviously not. If she's doing this, he's obviously not. If my life is harder, his is easier, right? It's like this constant battle, and it's like, like your life can be hard.
Yeah.
You can be doing a lot of work. I can also be doing a lot of work. I can also be tired, and again, like it's a whole just longer topic, right?
I'm going to save it for another day, and we can also do a poll on that. I think it would be kind of interesting to see people's experiences, how they've like, dealt with it, navigated through it.
90% actually, I think, of our audiences.
I know, but they could talk to their husbands, and then their husbands could tell us how they felt, and then we can.
No, that would be really interesting.
Cool, yeah.
Right, but like what I will end on that topic, the little part of the topic for, is just that, like, I remember just during your first pregnancy with Elise, just the amount of like, she's the one carrying it. Why are you blank? It's like, she's the one having the baby. And it's like, yo, like, of course I'm not. Freaking fireworks.
Just love that for us.
I know.
Happy for
but it's not like, and that's the thing, is like, because you're carrying the child, I obviously cannot be tired.
Yeah.
As opposed to, of course, you're carrying the child. You're going through this miracle of creation of life. That's not taking away anything. But I can also be tired. I can also be there when you're throwing up and awake with you and trying to work through the stress of like making sure we're, life is going to be okay for us.
The financials.
The financials, picking up the slack around the house, and making sure that,
because I would say for the first few months, like, I think wait until like my second trimester, I was throwing up. Like, I was bad.
Yeah. And, but it's like this notion of like, because you're doing that, I'm not allowed to be in any other state besides joyful ease.
And I think somebody said this before too. I don't know who it was. I think it was somebody in our family. They were just like, there are different levels of tired. And everybody can feel tired.
Yeah.
In different ways. It might not be like you are sleep deprived for 3 hours. Like you only got 3 hours of sleep, and I got 4 hours of sleep, and suddenly my sleep is better than yours.
Yeah.
I'm still sleep deprived. Yeah. And so are you.
Yeah. Or you could have gotten 8 hours of sleep, but you got 8 hours of sleep as a pregnant woman who can't roll over. And so their back is hurting.
Or you're a parent, or like somebody who's like taking care of somebody, and you got like interrupted sleep.
Yeah.
A whole full night of interrupted sleep. Like everybody's allowed to be tired, and everybody's allowed to feel what they're feeling. A struggle is not, parallel.
Yeah.
So anyways, back to judgmental parents. I have another thing to talk about, and I think it was about how,
you got a lot on your chest for this one.
Oh my gosh. I've been so like frustrated with people on the interwebs. It's just wild to me. I think people like for some reason have forgotten what netiquettes are.
I don't think people ever. But I think social media really took away netiquette. Like, I think people just all of a sudden.
People are just like upset. It's like you can do the right thing and somebody's still going to be upset. Like, you just can't do right by people.
Yes.
And the fear of like just being is exhausting and suffocating.
Yes.
Like, I can't be because I'm going to piss somebody off.
Well, to be fair, I think, was it Shakespeare wrote about this early on. He said, to be or not to be. That is truly the question.
Okay. Thank you for that quote. I just really needed that.
Anything for you. Sorry, go ahead. This was the other topic.
So I was thinking, I'm like, all these people choose to consume content that is put out on the internet, right? Mm-hmm. Me as a content creator, I'm not responsible for what you're consuming, right? I am posting my experiences, what works for me, my life. I'm the everyday person that you are, seeing, doing, going through a different journey, like different seasons of their lives. Mm-hmm. With their, and so when people are like, so like, for instance, if somebody's like really into wellness and they're solely catering. Their content is meant to be catered to holistic wellness, whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
And now this person who was like, I am not part of this audience. Like, I don't like what you're posting. This person said, make yourself zucchini fritters because it's really good for you.
Yeah.
And your kids, right? And now this person is like, well, I made chicken nuggets. Well, I got McDonald's chicken nuggets.
Why? You should have made zucchini fritters. I literally just told you to do that. Make zucchini fritters. They're better for you.
Right. And this person is now like, well, you're telling me that I have to make zucchini fritters. Like, it is impossible for me to make. Like,
it's not. Do better.
It's impossible for me to make. I'm a working mom.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has that kind of time.
Be a working harder mom is what I'm saying.
You're going to get so much. You're doing this to yourself at this point. But you get what I'm saying, right?
Saying. No,
you are choosing to consume what other people are putting out. You are choosing to follow people that no longer resonate with what you believe in, right? Yeah. So why is it just like, why can't y'all just keep it moving?
I agree I agree, but I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second, right? Because I think by virtue of what being a content creator is, right, which is essentially a person who is looking for the approval and the engagement of a community, mm-hmm. right? You sort of get spoiled by all of the people saying yes, mm-hmm. right? And then when the critical person comes through, it's hard to take it for what it is, right? Which is that, like, somebody's being critical of the work that I created. And you might have put a lot of hard work in there. I think a lot of people take for granted how hard it is to be a content creator. But, I think a lot of content creators sort of forget that there is a group of people out there who are served your content, right? That's the algorithm gods out there who are serving your content to people who may or may not like it, who then will respond to it. Now, to go back to my own opinion on it, which that part of that is my opinion, but the other part of it is that, like, if you don't like it, move on. Right? Like, why are you out here being nasty towards people? Why are you being negative towards mm-hmm. people? Do you not have anything better to do with your day than to be mean?
Yeah.
Right? That is my personal opinion on it. I think there are times where I feel like there's added value, right, to somebody coming in being critical. There's times where people have been critical of me or of us or of things that we've made, and I've taken a look back at it and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That's helpful.
Yeah.
And in the moment, I'll be like, that was mean. But then a day, 2 days later, I'll think about it a little bit. Oh, okay, cool. Actually, that makes sense. Right. But yeah, I think that for the most part, it's like, if it doesn't resonate with you, and as long as it's some terrible like abuse of something, right? Like, there's obviously there's so many content creators out there who've literally abused their children on camera, and then have gotten upset that somebody called them out for it. That's different. But I'm completely off topic. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore.
You were playing a devil's advocate, and now
I was, but now I'm sort of lost. I'm lost in the sauce. No, I'm really trying to keep it more specific to the judgmental parents, right? Because it's like, to your point, right? There's different types of parents. There are the holistic parents. There are the everyday parents. There's the working parents, right? The person who doesn't have time to make chicken nuggets from scratch, because it's actually quite a tedious process, right? It's not like you just cut up a piece of chicken into a thing, right? Like, it actually takes time. So, like, going out and judging each of those types of parents, I think is a little silly.
Yeah.
Right? Being like, oh, what I do is I'm a homemaker. So mm-hmm. of course you're busy as a homemaker, but the way your time is spent is different than somebody who spends 9 hours a day in an office and then 2 hours commuting. Mm-hmm. Right? Because they're going to come home, they're going to try to do something a little bit faster than maybe somebody who has spurts of time throughout the day to prepare something. You might also be somebody who's passionate about cooking, and therefore you make the time to cook. Yep. Right? That's different. Like, that's who we are. We're super passionate. We'll spend 2 hours at night prepping stuff for the kids for the next day, because that's what we want to do. We enjoy that. It's our therapy, right? But I don't think it's fair for people to go out. fair is not the right word. I don't think it's right for people to go out and judge other parents for the way that they parent.
I think a lot
as
of it
long
comes
as they're
from,
not doing something truly dangerous to their child. And even there, I think like people can make mistakes. Sorry, I just wanted to finish my thought. Even there, I think people can make mistakes, and there's a nice way to provide your observation to somebody without being a-hole about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up quickly because
I know
it's about to be bedtime. Yeah. I think what I wanted to say is like I agree with you that we shouldn't go out and judge each kind of parent, right? Like there's a lot of working parents, stay-at-home parents, holistic
traveling
parents, whatever it is, whatever type of parent you are, foster parents. I don't know, right?
Vegetarian, vegan.
But I think like everybody wants the best for their family, right? And they'll like they have their own recipes of how they're going to make things work. But I think a lot of the judgmental and shaming comes from people not being able to be another type of parent, right? Like obviously like working parents want to be stay-at-home parents because, you know, they get to spend, they think that, you know, they're like the stay-at-home parents are spending more time with their kids.
Yeah.
And then working, like stay-at-home parents be like, I want to go work, you know, like there's,
I need some space. I need some time away from
but
these
you know,
kids.
People like feel that way. It's a natural way to feel.
No,
like people want to be something different when they see something different, like options or whatever. I'm not losing my train of thought because I'm like, bedtime's coming.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, it's okay for people to be different and do different things.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about this earlier. I'm like, I find cooking therapeutic for me. So I make it work. I will strap a Xena to my body and I'll make dinner or like lunch for Elise.
Use a baby carrier.
Yes.
Before somebody's like, yo.
I like put her in, like I will put her in a carrier or I'll like move her high chair. I'll give her like a toy and I figure it out because that's what I like doing. That's what I find joy in doing. I want to feed my kids home cooked meals.
Yep.
But I'd be lying if I said there aren't days where I'm also feeding them chicken nuggets and hot dogs. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Right? But for people, I've had people in the past who've come to me like, you know, how do you have time? Like, how do you do this with kids? Like, this is so unrealistic.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm like, but I figure it out because that's what I want to do. I find it therapeutic and I love doing it.
Yeah.
So again, just to wrap it up, I think people just need to learn to give each other and themselves grace for, you know, doing what they're doing as parents and just surviving and like figuring it out as they go.
Yeah.
I think it's just too, like, it's just unnecessarily, like, it's just too, like, unnecessary for people to be so
I mean,
upset
parenting is such a hard thing as it is. And to also be worried about, while being like, am I doing right by my child? Is my child going to survive this? Is my child blah, blah, blah? Like, while you're doing that, which is such a stressful thing as it is, to also need to be worried about what is somebody else going to say to me, I think it's such an absurd sort of thought process that we have to have.
And the notion of like, you know, you've done this before as a parent, then like you should be able to do it the second time. I think it doesn't matter if you're a first-time parent or you're having a third or fourth child. Every child is different. Every journey and every chapter of each child is so different.
Yeah.
So while, you know, certain things might be easier, it's still a hard journey.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as like, you know, people just figuring it out the moment the baby is born. There's just so many things. So yeah, quit parent shaming because I'm so over it. The end. See you guys next time. Hurry. We gotta go because it really is bedtime.
Yeah. All right, cool.
We'll see you next time.